presentations on the then and now perspectives. And I'm pleased to be able to introduce two representatives from the Red Cross who will share their story with us. We have Ms. Danielle Coleman. She has extensive experience working in the humanitarian sector in the Cayman Islands and overseas. She has worked for the Human Rights Committee in the British Red Cross and is currently disaster manager at the CIA Red Cross. She holds a master's degree in law and one in understanding and securing human rights. She's a qualified yoga teacher and currently teaches at Her Majesty's Trip in Fairbanks. And also sharing the presentation will be Ms. John Gabobi, who has been the director of the Cayman Islands Red Cross since August of 2003, and so was the physician during Ivan. She survived the storm that year with her team of staff and volunteers. Her background includes emergency response, where she worked with the United Nations for 6 years prior to moving to the Cayman Islands. Please have the welcome Mrs. John Gabobi and Ms. Danielle Coleman. Coleman.
No, sorry. Yeah.
Is this my phone? I'm just going to come down because in Red Cross we're very informal and it's all about working with communities. And I know it's also after lunch. So I want to make sure that everybody's still with us. And with the Red Cross, we're very much about working in partnerships. And when I look out there, I see so many of our community partners. So whether it's those in the community response teams, or the department, or other government ministries. So I just want to see a show of hands, those of you who already have your family disaster response plan. More hands? No? That's it? Nobody's prepared? Show of hands, how many of you have done the first aid course? Oh dear. Okay, so I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of you over the next couple of weeks. But when we talk about preparedness, we want to make sure that we as the community leaders are prepared first so we can help our community. We were asked to talk about Hurricane Ivan then and now, or Red Cross then and now. So we're saying it's been 10 years and we're 10 years stronger. So I'm going to look at 3 things today. We're going to look at the work we did in the shelter, we'll look at relief distribution, and we're going to look at tracing and messaging. So in terms of shelter, the Red Cross shelter was actually the first one to open prior to Hurricane Ivan. So this was the Thursday before Hurricane Ivan. We opened it up and we started having residents come in. And by Hurricane Ivan, a shelter of a capacity of 95, we had 135 people. 135 people. And these are people who are scared, they're screaming, lots of emotion going on. So that was a great experience for us. We also had 2 trained first aid personnel in each of the 13 national shelters all around the island. And including that, we also sent other volunteers to provide additional support. So there was heavy support from the Red Cross in each of the shelters. And lots of lessons learned from them as well. And in terms of registration, how you work the process, when do you open the shelters after the storm. We work with the police to make sure there's an all clear and all that. And I see Jen is nodding her head because she remembers those days. So shelter was a big thing that we did. So we've done the shelter, the hurricane is passed, what happens next? People need items, people need stuff. Everybody wants stuff. Relief distribution. Who do you distribute to? Who's in need? We were all in need, we all needed stuff. But the Red Cross worked with the International Red Cross. And we requested emergency response relief items. And we had a meeting with the Department of Children and Family Services and decided that we needed distribution centers. There was no way we could have a centralized distribution in Georgetown. And as a result, we had distribution centers from West Bay all the way to East End. And this is the first time I recognized that Gun Bay was not East End. And during the distribution, we worked very closely with the social workers, and we also worked very closely with the teachers. Because we recognize that human beings are still human beings before and after disaster. So people will still try and beat the system. So some people from West Bay pick up their stuff from West Bay and then drive away to East End and try and pick up more stuff. So that was a challenge for us. But we learned through the social workers who actually knew the people in the district. And they were able to basically help us with registration and basically doing this quick assessment to make sure that the people that were getting items were those who were really engaged. So that was a major thing that we did then. And the third thing we did was tracing and messaging. And in the Red Cross world, we call it RFL. It's called Restoring Family Links. Now, those of you who may have a military background may know a little bit more about this. But historically, the Red Cross in times of war would send messages from soldiers to their families to make sure their families are okay and know they're okay. So that's how it all started. But over time, with disasters, we have also picked up this service. So the Red Cross will send messages to loved ones on the other side. And we got tons and tons of phone calls saying, is my family member okay? Are they fine? And so we would speak to people in the shelters, because of course if you're in a shelter, you're registered. And we're able to make those links. And this went on for several weeks, but there were lots of family members out there who were just happy to hear that their family members were in a shelter and they were safe. So those are sort of the three main things. There were lots being done, but in terms of time, I just want to focus on these three things. The big lesson that we learned, obviously, was that you definitely need a disaster manager, and I'm going to hand over to our disaster manager to tell you about what we've done so far.
Thank you very much, Jondo. As you see, 10 years later, 10 years stronger. I think that goes for all the islands, but it goes certainly for the Red Cross, and we're here to talk about the Red Cross in the next few minutes. We've been doing a lot with human resources over the last five years or so, and we're really increasing our DM volunteer training. So we've recently, the last couple of years, we've been training a national intervention team. And it's a 5-day course where this last year we've done 38 trained people in this. And it's things like first aid, but it's also like water and sanitation, relief distribution. As I say, it's a very intensive course, and they've recently done that this year. We've also developed 18 leaders. There's one DM, which I'm doing it, but we also need a lot of leaders for to delegate certain tasks to. So we'll on a specific task. It could be psychosocial support, it could be anything, but very much DM related. We also have trained shelter management teams, so our shelter managers are Red Cross trained as well as government trained, so they'll do both. They'll be first aid supporters in the shelters of the government, but they're also shelter managers for our shelter itself. And we have the Cayman Red Cross University, which has a variety of courses from HIV to all sorts of first aid style, simulations and so forth. So we're really believing that enhancing education, empowering people through education training is a crucial aspect of keeping and retaining our volunteers. We have schools, you saw the kids today, it's great to have the children, I say they're probably 12 years old, but we do a lot of Red Cross in the schools. So for example, we'll have training in schools, but we also invite kids to come and see what we're doing at the Red Cross. I remember when I was about 6 years old and I won a prize at prep school, and the prize was to go to see the police station, the fire services and so forth. And I have this memory so vividly in my mind of how exciting it was to actually see the people in practice doing what they're trained to do, doing what they're there for. So that's what we're going to try and give back to the schools. We invite them, we get them in the containers, we get them seeing the emergency operations centre so they can be really hands-on and learn from experience. And I think we've recruited a good few in the last couple of weeks anyway, which is great. Also corporate entities, we have a lot of, like KPMG for example, Mays & Calder, we train them, but they also come back to learn to do the containers with us. They're hands-on, getting dirty, getting to see what it's really about. We have something called the Voluntary Agency Response Subcommittee, which we co-chair with Hazard Management. And that basically, we learned from Ivan that there's a lot of people doing great things out there, be it Rotary, be it Lions, Kiwanis, other agencies, but no one's coordinating this. So unless we know what we're doing, we're duplicating services, and that is a fundamental problem in disasters. So we have this thing called VARS, Voluntary Agency Response Subcommittee, and we meet every quarter to make sure we are doing what we say we're doing, and everyone in the island is actually covered. We're building capacity in the overseas branches. So one of the great things that come from Ivan, I guess, is that we've trained our volunteers in what we call the National Intervention Team. But because a lot of the overseas branches have not had the experience of a hurricane, they haven't got these resources or expertise. So we're now the lead trainers in the overseas branches to train other overseas branches in National Intervention Teams. So we've trained recently in Turks and Caicos Islands, and they have now 27 responders trained in the NIT. Another thing we're doing, interns from around the world. We have our intern here, Karen, who has just arrived from England. We had one from Germany, and it's just getting the word out. We did advertise for our local schools, but we didn't get much uptake because working for Red Cross isn't the most lucrative, financially lucrative job in the world. So we have interns from around the world, and it's really good to be able to spread our word and get new ideas from our sisters and brothers around the world, and not just here in Cayman. We have EIU, Emergency Response Unit, and Regional Intervention Team trained personnel with us. So we respond, as three of us, we respond both in the Americas region with the Federation and also globally with the Emergency Response Unit from Geneva. So we do have a lot of training there between our communities, between our personnel in-house. And as far as the communities go, operations, Emergency Operations Centre. We've now been doing a lot of work in the last couple of years to our shelter, but the Emergency Operations Centre is what feeds into the National Emergency Operations Centre. So we now, with the help of AFCOM and Public Works, have been fantastic to help us out, have developed a very good comms system. So the communications at the Red Cross headquarters now is state-of-the-art. We've got CCTV cameras around the island. We can see the low-lying areas, we can see the airport, we can see a lot of high residential areas. So that's really good for response when we're running outside of the actual Emergency Operations Centre. We can see how, who we need what and where. As far as the container project goes, you can see this container, you've probably seen around the island. We learned again from Ivan that it's great to have supplies, but unless they're in certain locations, in the different districts, well, they're no good because we might get cut off. We can't be there all around the island at one time. So we've got containers all around the island now, full of relief stocks. So it's like things like tarpaulins, ponchos, cleaning kits. They're also a survival kit for the communities. And we work with community emergency response teams to distribute these if and when we need to. We have fleet maintenance. You've probably seen some of the Red Cross vehicles around. A lot of work goes to maintain these vehicles so they are ready to go if and when we need them. We have about 5 vehicles now as well as a trailer, and the trailer will operate as an incident command post should we need it. The shelter upgrades, again, picking up the Public Works Department, we've got a lot of things going on there. We're trying to invest more money in the shelter, because at the end of the day, the Red Cross shelter is a very, very different ballgame to, say, Prospect. And we want to be able to offer services, albeit, we have a very limited budget for that. RFL, tracing messaging, John has already talked about that. And framework agreements we have in place with certain organisations, like, for example, Portaloos. In the event of a disaster, we have a big relief distribution centre at the Red Cross. We need toilets outside. And I can show you, if you've ever seen the toilets at the Red Cross, they're bad enough in peacetime, let alone actually in a hurricane. Excellent. Okay, the community. So we talked a bit this morning about the CERTs. The CERTs, the Community Emergency Response Teams. We recognise that communities are the most fundamental people to respond. They are the first responders. As Jondo says, we need to know, if we're doing relief distribution, we need to know who's already gone through the system. And the community teams are fantastic to help us with that. As I say, Ted's here today from one of the community teams. We do have a big presentation on Saturday with Northside, should anyone of you want to join us. But as I say, we've got Northside Gardens, Northside, West Bay, and also we have a treatment at BRAC as well. The vulnerability and capacity assessment John talked about, but it's knowing your community. So we go with the community once we train them as CERTs to identify what the vulnerabilities are. It could be anything from flooding, from trees, anything. Derelict vehicles, dogs have been a big issue to a lot of these communities. So we've worked with them to make sure we have action plans to move forward and the mitigation programs. For example, we're starting a mitigation program in Northside Gardens very, very soon, and they've identified what they want. They need a container of their own for relief supplies, which they're going to turn into a outdoor cinema during the peacetime when they don't need it. So it's things like that. We can use their initiative, their resources, our resources that come together to make sure each community is a lot stronger. As I say, the communities are indeed the first responders, so we need to make sure both them and the Red Cross are very ready to go, and we're feeling quite happy and confident. This is the address, so please come along on Saturday for our Northside Gardens. Moving forward, we're trying to do a disaster challenge fundraiser. This is basically competing for money in the Caribbean or Cayman right now is very difficult from a charity perspective. We all have the balls, we have the golf tournaments, and they're very important. But we're trying to think outside the box a bit and do a disaster challenge, which would bring corporate entities along for a day challenge in the field, and that would be like changing tyres on a Land Rover, fixing food with very limited supplies, putting up a shelter with tarpaulins and very basic supplies. So we thought, and changing generators. So it's a team challenge, that's a time challenge. It's going to be very exciting when we launch it. We also want to do a new camp next summer early intervention programs we've been working on, identifying gaps with gangs. So there are a lot of issues that come of that. We're hoping to work with our stakeholders very soon, identify those kids and then work with the children. But obviously our stakeholders are very, very crucial with that. And climate change and human rights and so much more. So we really appreciate your help and support. And if anyone wants to know more, please come and speak to us or look at our website.